I was thrilled when I learned I got Sam, aka Look Mum No Computer, for this year's YouTube Maker Secret Santa. See, I like to brainstorm projects for each of the members of the gifting circle that I could possibly get, which is anybody I haven't already built for before. And my favorite idea this year was for Sam. Keep watching to see how I built him an audio sequencer in an old PS4 controller using sounds from his museum's sample packs. Sam performs with his modular synth and other cool audio equipment and collects obsolete technology for his museum in Kent, UK. We share a love for hacking toys and other ways to use electronics to be creative. If you're not already subscribed to Look Mum No Computer on YouTube, please remedy that right now. I'll wait. I started this project 2 years ago. The first stage was making a breakout board for the buttons on the PS4 controller, which is the most ubiquitous obsolete tech for me at the moment. I have a bunch of these kicking around that no longer work for whatever reason, but the form factor is really nice and the buttons work fine. I used my new breakout board to make a prototype sequencer that plays sounds when the buttons are pressed. If you've been around here a while, you might have seen that video when it came out. Here are the different stages this project went through. Here's the initial circuit I used to reverse engineer the button mapping, and here are my first versions of the sequencer circuit. It's based on John Park's open source breakbeat breadboard project, which runs loops and one-shots in CircuitPython on an RP2040 board. Here's where the perf board prototype merges with the breakout board PCB project. Despite having a lot of experience in the hardware world, this is only my second official PCB design project. And let's face it, ECAD and electronics in general is hard to learn. But one place that's making it easier is this video's sponsor, DigiKey. Over on their channel, I host a whole series for beginners that introduces fundamentals you need to make a project like this one. All of the components and tools for this project are also from DigiKey, including these cute pink audio jacks, the RP2040 board, the resistors, capacitors, and buttons, plus the soldering iron, flush cutters, wire strippers, circuit board vise, and hot air rework tool. A huge thank you to DigiKey for their continued support of my channel. So I sent off the new board design to be manufactured by JLCPCB, which is another channel sponsor. These new boards came quickly in the mail, and I started populating them with the sequencer parts. It's so satisfying when a component fits perfectly, and it's so annoying when you realize you've made a mistake. For one, I used the wrong spacing for these plated through holes that are supposed to line up to my audio amp. So in order to connect the amp to my board, I had to do a bunch of fussing with individual wires. Not so bad though, and it's easy to fix for the next board revision. But the version with the sequencer on the PCB wasn't working how I wanted it to. Up until now, the design used an external speaker component to play the audio. But I really wanted to use the controller's onboard speaker, which involved carefully harvesting the special clips from the original controller boards so that I could reattach them to my own. My aux-out audio was working fine, but when I flipped the switch to use the speaker, the amp would get hot and no sound would play. I spent a long time looking at my circuit and probing at it with a multimeter before I figured out my error, and the project sat on the shelf most of the time. When I found out I got Sam for Secret Santa, my motivation for the project was renewed, since I knew Sam would get a kick out of using a newly obsolete toy to play sounds created at his museum. So I had to figure out what was wrong with the speaker output part of my circuit. My instinct was to phone a friend to ask if I could go over the board layout together. But half the benefit of that is just having someone to have to explain each element to, and often talking it out will reveal the solution before any other feedback is provided. So before phoning a friend, I utilized rubber duck debugging, which is a technique from the software world where you talk through your project in plain language to a rubber duck, or something similar. This helped me come up with new things to test, and eventually I figured it out. I had mistakenly tied my speaker negative to my circuit's ground. They are most certainly not the same thing, but it was easy for me to overlook. So I took a sharp craft knife to my PCB and cut the traces connecting the speaker negative to the circuit's ground plane, and used a multimeter to make sure there was no longer continuity between the speaker negative and the circuit's ground. I used a little wire to jump from the amp to the speaker contact, and I was in business. It's not like this speaker sounds great or anything, but I think it's super cool to make a circuit that reuses it. Of course, for performing or recording, the aux-out will give you better audio quality. I kept whipping up circuits until I got two that worked well. The tiny switches under the share and options buttons proved too small for me to solder by hand, even after switching to the smallest tip I have. This one. So the next version of this project will have the surface mount components machine assembled by JLC's PCBA service. So the way the sequencer works is that the sounds designated as loops will always be playing in the background, and the buttons toggle their mute status. The other sounds are one-shots, which play once every time you press their button. What's cool is that the sounds don't interrupt each other, they overlay, so you can really jam out and make your own composition. I shopped for sound samples from Sam's museum store. I had a blast curating 2 groups of sounds, one for each of the 2 controllers I wanted to send him. There are tons of sound packs available, and hopefully after watching this and reading the accompanied tutorial linked in the description, he'll be able to swap out the sounds to suit his needs on any given day. To make the sounds compatible with life on a microcontroller, a little audio processing needs to be done to each file. For this, I used the free software Audacity to mix stereo down to mono, change the format to 16-bit PCM, and the project sample rate to 22 kilohertz. Then it's just a matter of loading up the new crunchier sound files onto the board, which mounts like a USB drive on your computer, and editing the code to make sure it references the file names of the sounds we're using. While I still prefer coding in Arduino, I gotta admit, Python is really easy to learn. And these days, the cost has come way down on the chips that have the extra processing power needed to run an interpreted language like CircuitPython. So I may be an old dog learning new tricks, but I'm not gonna be a curmudgeon about it. To decorate the controllers, I swapped out the plastic buttons with replacement ones I found online and switched up the parts between them to make each one have a unique color combo. I wanted to decorate them even further, and I remember meeting a little girl named Zelda at OpenSauce this year who asked if I might make something with the Furby parts I have left over from my teardown video. Great idea, Zelda. Sam loves Furbies even more than I do.
What about a Furby picnic?
Ultimately, I went with just one of Furby's ears, the one that still had its LED assembly intact, and wired it up to power and ground on my circuit. If Zelda and her dad are watching, could you get in touch with me, please? I'd like to send something along to say thanks for the inspiration. Usually I would use epoxy for something like this instead of hot glue, but I simply did not have time to wait 24 hours for the glue to dry. I was overdue to get this thing in the mail and on its way to the UK. Fingers crossed it gets to Sam safely and that he likes it. Head over to his channel to watch him open my gift. Now it's time to open the gift from my Secret Santa.
My gift is here, and this is how big it is. It's actually in 2 boxes, and it's from James Bruton. Jimmy B, YouTube's OG robo guy.
Jimmy with the B, YouTube's OG robo guy.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I was asked before I knew who my Secret Santa was if I was still riding my scooter. And I do ride my Vespa scooter around. Could it be something to ride? I see skulls. I see a sign that says careful with the springs. Whoop, I see motors. I called that there would be motors. That was kind of an easy one. And being careful with the springs. It's got a conveyor belt. Okay, cool.
Oh my gosh.
And then lifting it by the sides. Okay, but it is smaller than the box. Wow, it has cool skulls on it. You think Jimmy thinks I'm a badass or something? Oh, the flash drive. Here, Becky. Hey, Becky, here's your present. Video instructions are on this USB stick. Problems at all, give me a shout. He says James, but I am going to tell you it says Jimmy B. Oh, more skulls. Yeah, here's a little motorcyclist who has a skull for a head. Is he going to drive on the track? All right. Okay. Yep. Here's this very cool little lady motorcyclist. Oh, are these like the obstacles that get thrown down in front? No. Okay, and one more piece. And box number 2. It's got more skulls on it. Everything has skulls, oh, look at that. Yeah, I think the skulls must go in these. Okay, I'm gonna watch the instructions before I proceed.
Hi Becky, I'm your Secret Santa.
Yay.
Happy Christmas. It's still actually November here though. I just wanted to make a video about the gift because it's much easier than writing it down. Hopefully it's got there in one piece. Yeah, first of all, sorry it's so big. It kind of got more pieces built on it as I went. I'm aware you probably don't have much space because New York property is expensive, so if you want to strip it down afterwards for parts, then that's absolutely fine with me. There are a couple of improvements that could be made that maybe there's another video in it if you want to, but I'll talk about that at the end. So this is the game, the mechanical arcade game of Ghost Rider, the motorbike driving game. And basically there's a motorbike, which you should have somewhere in the packaging here, which rides on a conveyor belt and it balances the way bikes balance with the steering angle and the rake angle, so it stays upright when it's in motion. So that's kind of the physics spin on it. And the idea is you put it on the conveyor belt, it's towed along by this tow rope that's in a V shape, and then there's a steering column on the front of the machine that can steer the bike, and then obstacles drop out of the obstacle distributor, which is mounted at the top on the conveyor belt, and you have to avoid them.
Jimmy B.
Remix.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
I'm the J to the I to the double M Y. I'm the Jimmy with the B, YouTube OG robo guy. The Prime Minister of Python. The Prime Minister of Python. Prime Minister of Python. Prime Minister of Python. Prime Minister. Go views up in the millions. I break records with my filament.
That's it for Secret Santa this year. I had such a great time and hope you did too. Don't forget, this huge collab is a circle, so keep watching until you get back to where you started. I'll put links to the other videos in the description. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. I hope you'll subscribe with the bell to be notified of my future uploads, subscribe to my email newsletter, and find me on your favorite social media platform. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This video is made with support from my sponsors and generous donations from viewers like you through Patreon and YouTube memberships.
Jimmy.
Let the bass kick.
It's Jimmy B.